Welcome to Tabletop Gaming Guild. Today we'll be unboxing Unfathomable, designed by Tony Fanchi and published by Fantasy Flight Games. Now this is a game I'm excited about because this is a re-implementation of Battlestar Galactica, which is one of the early classic hidden trader games that was a little bit of a bear to get to the table. Personally, I've never really been a huge fan of Fantasy Flight's rulebook styles, where they always have two rulebooks, one that's learn how to play, and then the other's references. The references is useful, but I never found them very easy to learn, because the way the rulebooks are laid out are really kind of optimized for looking it up later rather than learning. The font choice and cover are an interesting choice because it kind of reminds me of the old King's Quest games. If you ever played a text adventure on a floppy disk, you probably know what I'm talking about. And back to what I was saying with all these references, that's a lot. This whole book is just references to terms, which you're probably not going to want to bother to look up constantly throughout the game. Most of them are pretty straightforward anyways, you don't need to look them up. Let's get the shrink wrap off the component boards. And I can see why they shrink wrap this, because these pieces are so well cut out that they're almost falling out just by barely touching them, so it avoids the risk of accidentally losing some pieces in shipment. Well, this is not a component heavy game. There's just a few characters and not much else for components to punch out. Shrink wrap boards, it always makes me a little nervous if I have to take a knife to open these. Don't want to cut my board. A large board, so it makes some room. Barely fits in the frame. In the top right, it looks like we have some dowels that we need to install. I saw those in the punch board, so we're probably going to also get the little plastic clips to clip them on. It's a nice looking board. I suspect it'll fill up really quickly with monsters. There's not a huge number of spaces you can go to. Card design is very minimalistic. Fair amount of text, nothing too difficult to understand. A very minimal number of symbologies. But these look like, I guess these are the ethos cards, so these are different horrible things that can happen to you and you might have to deal with throughout the game. Being a Cthulhu themed game, don't expect any kindnesses out of this deck. So these are your role cards, or loyalty cards I think they're called. There's definitely a lot more human cards than any other. Now, if this works like BSG, then you're going to have two chances of becoming a trader, one at the beginning of the game and then you'll be dealt a second card halfway through the game. I believe in this there's also a guarantee there will be a trader. You also get quite a few smaller cards and a few different types. And first we got the feat cards, which is basically special abilities of different characters. These aren't like the game-breaking type of asymmetry, but they will definitely have a small impact on how you play. Now these look like spell cards, so that's a switch up from BSG. That's definitely a new element. But if I know the Cthulhu theme, you're not going to get these spells for nothing. Something bad's going to happen when you cast these spells. Now we're looking at the item cards, which all seem to have unique art, which is nice. It's definitely a plus to have unique art, and where it doesn't detract from the game, it's just simple and minimalistic. Now these waypoint cards, I really like how these look. Next we have ship damage cards, which I'm sure we'll be getting a lot of throughout the game. Well, this would have been a good opportunity for some harrowing art, but I can see where they would want to keep them more generic so they apply to every situation. And these would be the skill cards to contribute to various events to determine the outcomes, but of course I'm assuming this is going to be like Dead of Winter, or obviously BSG, but where it's like the tools where you can contribute, but you may contribute things that really don't help. And it looks like they have a secondary function of being able to use them for the action, for the text on the card, instead of contributing to an event. It looks like there's a nice selection of characters you can choose from that all have their own unique abilities, as well as a nice little backstory. And then we got a nice little player aid that goes over how the game is played and how the game changes if you reveal as a trader. And on the other side, it has a couple of the different monsters you can encounter. And then we got a player aid for the special functions in specific rooms of the ship, as well as on the reverse, various special circumstances. Let's jump over to the enemy minis. We got the Swole Swamp Thing. This would look nice with a really simple paint job. It's very three-dimensional, so with a lot of cracks and little crevices, so a lot of the shadowing would take care of itself. This must be the big bad. I wonder if they'll do expansions with other Cthulhu, other Elder Gods, rather. Although, this being at sea, I think it'd be a little limited. They want to have ones that are relevant to the setting. And then we got quite a large number of these small minis. Definitely going to fill up the board with these. Well, that's all the components for Unfathomable. Excited to get to play this re-implementation of Battlestar Galactica. Hopefully it's much easier to get to the table than the original. That said, I think I will miss the original theme because it was so unique. But to be honest, I didn't think the original could ever be remade because it was so tied to the theme, so I'm excited to try this one. Well, thank you for watching. As always, you can catch us here on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere podcasts can be found, and many other social medias. And please don't forget to like and subscribe.